All right, we are back. It's Typology Gifts. I'm Dan. We're with Blake. We're on part B, and I went and had my drink, poured my next drink. I'm doing screwdrivers tonight, and I had some thoughts about a few other types that I'm pretty sure that you're not. So I'm gonna just go through and mark those ones off. Uh, I have it more narrowed down than I actually thought I did.
Interesting. Okay. I was trying to think about which ones you might have knocked off too.
Yeah, you'll have to see on the video. Um, so it's just going to be a matter of trying to see they're not exactly the types that remain are similar.
I'm
Um,
curious. I actually have no idea.
it might be that you have a capable use of a few different cognitive functions for some reason that would throw me off. Like you know what I mean? Like you might not have you might be versatile in your way of thinking. Um,
Cool.
cool, cool. So, let's see here. Um, what kinds of things are you good at remembering, and what kinds of things are you not good at remembering?
I actually thought about this because I thought it might come up. So I'm definitely better at remembering things I've learned,
hmm
um, or read about, or watched, or like learned for school or whatever.
hmm
And I'm worse at remembering the like semantic details of my days in life and stuff like that.
You cut out right when you said and something about the semantic details of your life. What was it you said right before that?
I said I'm better at remembering things that I've learned or read about or watched or stuff like that.
Then you are the.
Yeah,
And when you say the
and I
semantic details, what do you mean exactly by that?
like what I ate, who I was with, what I did,
Okay.
what time it was,
Do you
whatever.
think that do you think that you why do you think some people retain that information and some people don't?
I think like I'm biased because I've done a little bit of research about this, but I feel like it's because some people are more in their heads than others. Some people are more in the moment,
hmm
and I think the people who are in the moment are better at retaining those semantic kinds of details. But like I said, I might be biased just because I've like looked that up. So
Do you think that are you in your head a lot?
I'd say so, but not when I'm like when I'm with other people. I'd say I'm present, like I'm present right now,
hmm
but most of the time I'd say I'm in my head.
Okay. And how visual of a thinker are you?
Um, Be visual, yes. But I've never been good at art or anything, but decent at imagining scenarios and things.
And what is it about art that you think that you struggle with?
I always joked my brother's an artist, so I always joked that he got like the art genes and they
Hmm.
skipped me.
Hmm.
But I think it's probably just actually thinking about it now, maybe I'm just not that great of a visual, um, like not a very imaginative person because it's hard for me to remember what something looks like to draw it.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, just like accuracy and honestly, like turning 2D things into 3D things is really difficult for me.
Hmm. What about visualizing concepts like in chart form and things like that?
Probably better at that than more abstract things.
Hmm.
I like lists and charts and stuff like that.
Okay. Um, if you come into a workplace and there's a lot of protocols and a lot of rules, do you find that a relief or do you find that constricting?
In some ways, it's a relief
Hmm.
because I think I'll give an example about what I mean in a second, but
Hmm.
in some ways, I think it's a relief, and in others, not so much because, for example, I was a project manager of a school club recently, and they promoted me to managing director, and I liked being a PM because I was in charge of my own group.
Hmm.
Whereas as an MD, suddenly I was part of like a bigger network of people, and the expectations like weren't my own, and that was really difficult to adjust to
Hmm.
because I liked creating the structure for my group. But at the same time, I like it when there's um, I like having biweekly meetings. I like knowing what's expected of me, stuff
Hmm.
like that. But I also don't like adjusting to new rules. So I'd say a little bit of both, but mostly I like the structure.
Do you do you think that you are better at understanding people or things?
I don't know. I don't know. I actually don't know. Like,
That's a broad question, isn't it? Is the
yeah.
color is the color yellow? Does it smell like blueberries to you? Um, so no. Let me try to think of
The
something a
days of
little.
the week are colors
What's that?
for me, though. If you were talking about synesthesia,
Uh-huh. Do
that
you have
definitely
do you have
does.
synesthesia?
Yeah.
How does synesthesia how does that manifest for you?
The days of the week are different colors for me. Like
Mm-hmm.
Monday's red, Wednesday's orange,
Mm-hmm.
Friday's blue.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is that just the days of the week that are like that, or are there do all words have a color, or is it days of the week, or is it other kinds of concepts?
Concepts definitely have vibes to them, like feelings. I don't know if that's synesthesia or not, but this would happen especially when I was younger, like certain situations or movies or just like stimuli would give
Mm-hmm.
me very distinct feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would associate those feelings with those things.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Um,
And I don't know if that's synesthesia, but
um, I think it to a degree. I think people that have synesthesia can have it to varying degrees, and I think some people have it very strongly, and it's like part of their like they hear music and they're like, I see color. And then there's other people I think it's probably more subtle. So, um, I can kind of identify with some of what you said, a bit more specifically where you said the days of the week have color. I don't really. For me, it's more like I can see those. I can see concepts spatially somehow in my head. So
oh, interesting.
so I can look at them. I can look. I'll. To me, the days of the week are calendar days. Like I'm always in my head. Anytime I'm thinking of those days, I'm always seeing them in order like that, like as if I'm looking at a calendar.
Interesting.
Anyways, but it's not
Yeah.
about me. That's just my. That was just something I was thinking about. Um, so, what about managing other people? Do you find that you naturally gravitate towards overseeing other people, or is it a situation like it just happens to you, or people trust you, so they put you in charge of other people, or what? How does that? What's your relationship with overseeing other people?
I enjoy it for sure because, like I mentioned before, I like making the structure and I prefer other people being accountable to me than vice versa
Hmm.
because there's just like, I feel like that way I could fix something if it goes wrong. And yeah, so I enjoy that for sure, but I wouldn't say I naturally gravitate towards that role
Hmm.
only because I find it uncomfortable to put myself in that position like voluntarily. But
Hmm.
if someone, asks me to do it, I enjoy it.
Okay. So, how do you motivate people?
Um, with a common vision,
Hmm.
I'd say, as cheesy as that is, I think I'm thinking back to this project and I think it was successful because we were trying a new way of approaching this project
Hmm.
than other groups in the club typically approach it, and I think that was really exciting. And the idea that we might be the first group to achieve something like this was big, and then also just I think I tried to motivate people by letting them know that like I'm approachable and reliable in a
Hmm.
sense. Like if you text me at 11 p.m., like I'll answer your text. If you have a question, like don't hesitate to ask me, kind of thing. So try to motivate people by letting them know that I'm approachable and also that we have a common goal to work towards.
Okay, okay. Um, all right, that's really useful information. Um, okay, I think I'm going to tell you what type I think you are, but I'm also going to tell you the other type that I thought you could be, and that way you can be like, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, because I have this hunch that you're probably going to know exactly what I'm going to say. Um, and I'm also I'm also kind of trying a new thing where when I'm talking to other people who have spent a lot of time researching typology, that I'm not just going to come right out and tell you what type I think you are. I'm going to tell you what cognitive functions I think you're exhibiting, and then that way you can put two and two together and figure out what type I think you are. Um,
Okay.
so, let's start off with um, the um, you you speak in generalities a lot, and you don't necessarily hone in on specifics a lot. Um,
That's
and
interesting.
and
I didn't realize that.
yeah, and I think you've also thought further out into the future than a lot of people do, even if you think that's not that far into the future. Um, uh, y- you know, you do like to be in control, and to it seems like my observation, anyways, of your surroundings and of your situation, kind of, like not wanting somebody to show up, and an acquaintance to show up, uh, spontaneously. Um, there certainly are things that certain personality types that like to foresee outcomes would prefer to be in control of those outcomes in a way. Like they would like to they would like the outcomes to play out the way that they foresee them playing out. And if there's deviation from that, then that can be upsetting. Um, so to me, that would be like strong introverted intuition preference, and I think also the way that you talk, you're pretty to the point, I think, and you don't really seem to improvise a lot while you're talking as much. You kind of like you kind of know the point that you're getting it to, and then you just work your way on getting there, and then you get there, and then you're done. Um, and that's also, I think, a lot of introverted intuitives do that kind of thing. Um, I think they know beforehand, before they say something, what they're going to say, and then it's just a matter of saying it. um,
Yeah, yeah, I'd say that's accurate.
and also, introverted intuitives also kind of sensory experiences kind of pass through in a sense. They sort of pass by. It's just like you go through it and it's gone, and then it leaves an impression, it leaves some kind of meaning behind, but it doesn't really stick around. And I think that could be why you don't think that you're a very good artist, because it does require a strong sense of introverted sensing to be able to recall things like color and form. I had a girlfriend when I was in college. I think she might have been an ISTJ, but she was just really fantastic at painting real light and real color and real form in these kind of beautiful. It looked almost abstract, but like it all, you'd step back and it all came together and it all fit together. Um,
Yeah.
so um, so that that's what I would say I have the strongest sense about your personality, that you probably prefer to use introverted intuition more than extroverted intuition, um, based on the way you talk and things you kind of the way you're formulating your thoughts and things, from what it sounds like. Um,
Mhm.
so then the other side of it is, well, if that's the case, then INTJ or INFJ, right? Um, so or, I mean, I don't think you're an extrovert, and I don't think that's just because you said that you're an introvert. I would say you seem very um, proactively thoughtful, even if you said that you're kind of in the middle. I think that there's been a number of things you said throughout this call that had to do with you getting into your own headspace and working things out, and um, the whole like wanting to know beforehand somebody comes over is less about necessarily social anxiety. Could be, but I mean more about, I think, wanting to wanting to go inside first and check in first before doing something external. And that didn't narrow it
Mhm.
down to an NI dominant type, but I think introverts do just want to do that, like check in before they uh, necessarily. Some types are more open to that. Um, so the question then is, did I get a sense of extroverted feeling or extroverted thinking from you, preference? And a lot of the things you were saying to me through the majority of the call struck me as extroverted feeling preference. But there was something that you said earlier, really early in the call, that that I couldn't shake, about wanting to, how did you put it? Um, you wanted to be good, and you wanted to have an objective understanding of what that meant and things. And I think the reason I didn't necessarily piece that together to be introverted feeling kind of thing was because you don't necessarily give off the vibe of an introverted feeling like dominant kind of person. But Um, I think INTJs, uh, their introverted feeling causes them uh, to have this sort of inner longing of a kind, I guess, um, to to be at moral equilibrium of some kind. I don't know. I think INFJs are more likely to seek external moral equilibrium. They want the world to be balanced. They want society to be just, and they want everything to be fair. But introverted feelers want their own morals to be balanced. So that led me, and I think there were a few other things that seemed to make me lean more towards extroverted thinking preference over introverted thinking preference, and they had to do with protocols, lists, um, managing other people. These are all things that are kind of accepted as being pretty commonly understood as extroverted thinking preference kind of things because they require a strong ability to think externally. I mean, you have to be able to look at your environment and look at the people around you and look at the situation and piece it all together in real life in a real practical way. Um, and like you mentioned, business and things like that. Business is something that like INFJs kind of shy away from because they don't like those aspects. They don't like to control people or to be in charge necessarily. Um, my observation of INFJs, and there are probably exceptions. I mean, supposedly Hitler was an INFJ, right? But I think extroverted thinking has more of a knack um, for like picking up on existing protocols and working with them really well, whereas introverted thinking does a lot of that reinventing of the wheel kind of thing. And, introverted thinkers invent some amazing wheels. You know what I mean? But it's not always practical. So reinventing the
Okay.
wheel is cool, and if nobody had ever done it before, we wouldn't have great wheels. But if everyone was reinventing wheels, we'd never get anywhere. So I think the over here is the introverted thinkers doing a lot of work that I think probably extroverted thinkers would say this pretty useless work, and maybe a lot of it is at the end of the day, as far as from a can I use it kind of thing. But there's probably some brilliant ideas that come out of that make their way back into the rest of the world and end up in that use cycle. Um, and I think also extroverted thinking preference versus introverted thinking preference. I think you mentioned you're sort of not as creative of a person, and I think introverted thinkers tend to be a lot more creative. That's not universally true, of course. There's like ENFPs and INFPs are kind of notoriously creative people, and they're extroverted thinkers. But but I think they're creative with their environment. Like they're creative with the external world, and introverted thinkers are more creative with ideas and theories and things like that. So it sounds more like you're working in your practical world a lot more. You're using your intuition to influence the practical world around you a lot more than you are coming up with new theories and ideating and stuff. Um, like you said, reinventing the wheel. It's not like you're sitting there necessarily coming up with all kinds of new inventions for the wheel. You're practicing with reality, kind of. Um, so, what are your thoughts on all that?
I'm surprised. I
What type did
wasn't
you think you were coming into this?
expecting. Well, most recently I got ISFJ,
Mm-hmm.
which sounded pretty accurate to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I was really stuck on the um, like IN versus IS. Is that
Mm-hmm.
introverted intuition versus
Versus
introverted
introverted
sensing?
sensing.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because on the one hand, Sure, yeah, because I was like, I really like structure in some contexts, and I, you know, prefer all the things you just mentioned. But um, yeah, so that's why I thought I'd probably be IS, if anything. And then I've also gotten, I don't think I've ever gotten a T in any of the times I've taken the test.
Hmm.
So it surprised me that you typed me as an INTJ because I think I was expecting to be an extroverted feeler. I feel like, I'm pretty aesthetic.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just surprised by that.
So let's talk about that then, because that's an interesting. That's two interesting types to kind of debate back and forth between. My best friend's an ISFJ, so I do have a very good handle on at least what he's like.
Mm-hmm.
And I do agree. I do think you have a pretty good handle on um, perceiving other people's um, emotional state. Um, so that's why I think um, maybe it was kind of challenging to try to figure out your type. Um, because but I guess if I think about it, let's see, what would be some arguments I would have against ISFJ if I had any? Um, there are certainly some good arguments for it, I guess. The idea that you like things to be pretty methodical and kind of um, predictable is definitely something
Mm-hmm.
that ISFJs do. Um, I think that probably ISFJs would spend well, I think that when ISFJs make decisions based on um, introverted sensing, they're they're often pulling upon the catalog of things that have happened to them and able to really clearly learn from their mistakes really well because they have a good sense for what they've experienced and what they've gone through and things. And introverted intuitives seem to. It's as if those same sensory experiences that impacted the introverted sensor in a sensory way impacted introverted intuitives in a subconscious way.
Yeah, I can see that.
So
Yeah, I'd say that makes. Um, I was just thinking about the 16 personalities, like ISFJ description,
sure,
like on their website,
yeah.
and that first paragraph like super resonated with me. So I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. But then came up with some of the contradictions that you just mentioned. So the first paragraph was like, you know, there's I don't remember the exact wording, but it was like there's a lot of misalignments
Hmm.
in your personality. Like on the one hand, you really like to be alone, but on the other, you're kind of a people person sometimes, and you are practical, but also like I forget what it was, but it was just like there's a lot of contradictions, which made sense to me. I resonated with that, but yeah, good.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say that's the kind of thing that makes it a bit astrology-ish, kind of, because if they list out two contradicting points, then they'll get you somehow. They're like, yeah, I'm like that. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
fair enough. Yeah.
But now I'm not saying that you're not an
Actually,
ISFJ, so I wouldn't be that dogmatic.
I think um, like the INTJ makes sense for the INFJ, maybe even. But I
Yes.
like thought of some contradictions before this because I suspected that there might be some trouble like pinpointing exactly
Mm-hmm.
what my preferred cognitive functions would be. So
Mm-hmm.
I listed some um,
Yeah, go ahead.
contradictions. I said on the one hand, I love talking to people, but and sometimes find myself going to advice for others, but I really also need my alone time. I feel like we've touched on that already,
Mm-hmm.
but um, also I'm feel like I'm really understanding and empathetic, but can also be judgmental, which is interesting because that whole like wanting to be good thing,
Mm-hmm.
I kick myself when I'm judgmental and I really don't like it, but it's something that, I'll have like a visceral reaction to something.
Mm-hmm.
I'll judge someone and I'll be like, oh, that wasn't good. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you should understand where they're coming from. And then I'll try to rationalize through that feeling. Another thing I said was I'm sometimes instinctively or like viscerally jealous or unhappy about something, but I can rationalize my way out of feeling that way. And then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I love public speaking, but I often hate it. Like the other day, I had an event where I had to host, like, have a conversation publicly, and that idea really scared me because it involved improv,
Mm-hmm.
thinking of what to say on the spot, stuff like that. So I
Mm-hmm.
hated the idea of it, but in the moment, I found myself really enjoying the adrenaline of that. So
Mm-hmm.
just a lot of contradictions.
So one thing that you could think about is ISFJs do prefer extroverted intuition, and admittedly, I think they do probably do a little bit better improvisationally than INTJs or INFJs do, um, for that reason, because they're not necessarily so hung up on the future outcome of the situation, and they're just sort of able to roll with it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that ISFJs don't have expectations, but I think they have expectations based on past experience. So they expect something to be a certain way in the future because it's always been that way, you know? Um,
Sure, sure.
so I mean I can see how if you lined an ISFJ, an INFJ, and an INTJ up, it might be challenging. The other thing I've noticed too is that there's these stereotypical manifestations of these types, um, a lot of times among men, and then I've met women who were I did this and I went through and got through and I figured out which what cognitive preferences they had, and
Mm-hmm.
they weren't necessarily um, manifesting exactly the same way because there's all kinds of other layers of things, cultural things, societal
Sure.
things that will. For example, I found that thinking types among women tend even thinking types that are women often tend to be fairly empathetic people. More
Mm-hmm.
so than a lot of thinking types that I've run into that were men. Um,
Yeah,
and it's not to say that you know that's not true all across the board, but I think that for whatever reason you could say, well, it's because society allows women to be more emotional, or who knows what. You bring up all kinds of arguments for why you think that happens, um, but that might be something else to think about and consider, which is just because you read a certain type's description, um, it may those types are going to manifest differently uh, based on gender and probably also based on upbringing, um, and maybe even geographical location to a degree. Um, I mean, in theory, they
that
should.
makes sense.
Yeah, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Um, that just made me think of this INTP female. Um, Even I think Tina Fey is an INTP.
Hmm.
Um, and like if you were to put a conversation with her against a conversation with a stereotypical INTP male,
Hmm.
which I think I've seen. I don't remember what this guy's name was, but he was on your channel too, and I feel like he was just a very stereotypical INTP. If you were
Yeah.
to put those two against each other, they're super different in the way they behave, but there's definitely a sense of like uniformity or whatever in the way they speak and think.
Yeah.
So that makes sense to me. I think maybe the cultural aspect has something to do with it.
Do you have a favorite dish that you like to get at a restaurant when you go to a restaurant? What's your favorite
Yes.
dish that you like to get?
Well, there's a local place where I live, and I always get the 57. 57 is heaven.
What is the 57?
So,
I know Heinz has
um,
57 ingredients or something. I don't know. In the ketchup. Is it ketchup?
it's
Is it just a big bowl of ketchup?
no, it's a
Oh.
sub.
Oh, okay.
It's a sub. I always get it. I'm a vegetarian, so it's a
Hmm.
meatball sub, but I always get the veggie replacement.
Okay, okay.
But yeah, so I like consistency
Uh-huh.
even in food. Mm-hmm.
So
If
here's the
I'm
me-
like
so
cooking
here's
or
here's
something.
the metaphor that I was thinking of about that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
if that was a standard sandwich, I don't know what we would call it, a veggie sandwich, and you listed off all the ingredients, you could probably go to 10 different restaurants and order that exact same sandwich and get 10 different sandwiches, even if they all had the same ingredients. Because made by different people, they went to different stores to buy the ingredients. This one put too much lettuce
Mm-hmm.
on, that one, you know what I mean? And it might be the same sandwich. It's just the
Yeah.
other circumstances around it are different. So that might be a good way to think about it in this case
Mm-hmm.
is
Yeah.
no two
Makes
people are the
sense.
same. Um,
Yeah.
so I don't know though. I wish I could help you be more definitive on this now. I don't know if anything we've talked about has helped you get more definitive or if I've only muddied the water. I hope I haven't. Um, but maybe that gives you a couple of directions to look into and research. Um, that you weren't thinking of. Um, I guess if we can say with some level of probably not necessarily definitiveness, but like confidence, anyways, is that you're probably an IJ type. So
That's what I was. Yeah, that's what I was pretty confident about too.
yeah, so it's really just a question of looking at those dichotomies and trying to um, suss that out. I don't know. It just might. I mean, some people are ambidextrous. You know what I mean? Not everybody's going to fit nice and neat and square into a certain type. If anything, you could say, well, if I can figure out close enough where I think I am, then I can at least try to relate to other people better because I know I fall within these certain tendencies or whatever. It's really only mostly a self-development tool or to help you with your relationships with other people or things like that more than anything. So I know for me, like before I dug into any of this stuff, once I finally started to get it, it really did help me quite a bit because I had a hard time, like without having any kind of framework whatsoever to think about. Some people, like perhaps you or I, might need a little bit extra help um, with our relationships with people for some reason. You might need to have try to have a better understanding of other people. A lot of extroverts seem to have no trouble. They just get right in there and they just go,
Yeah,
get in there and
for
go.
sure.
And
Yeah, I'm envious of that for sure. But
well, but that's you have your own strengths, and it takes all kinds, and you're gonna make calculated moves, and that's maybe some of the extroverts wouldn't have made. So just gotta be happy with what equipment you've got, right?
right, to each their own.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I actually ask you some questions? I'm
Yes. Yep.
curious. I've been really looking forward to this part.
To this part.
Um,
Okay, go ahead. Hit me.
yeah. All right. So I was just wondering what types you tend to be surrounded by. I know you're an INFJ,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So who are you surrounded by most often, and what's your favorite type?
Okay. Um. Well, I told you my best friend's an ISFJ. We get along like peanut butter and jelly. We've been friends for um 20 years now. Um,
Mhm.
We were best men at each other's weddings. I'm divorced now, but he's still married. We, so we get along just so well. My son is an ENTP. My daughter's an
What do you
ENF.
think that is?
Oh, why do I think that is? Well, we
Mhm.
have we have similar interests. We're both interested in computers and gaming and things like that. Um, but
Mhm.
I think also I think that well, for one, it's hard for me to say why relationship ends up lasting and relationship B doesn't end up lasting. It's hard to
Mhm.
know early on in a friendship how long that friendship's going to last for, and whether you're going to get sick of each other or uh, something's going to happen in either of your lives and cause you to um, grow apart or whatever. So for whatever reason, he and I have just had a long, um, really good relationship. But I think um, maybe what I get from it, or what I like about the relationship is um, he being an ISFJ is I'm assuming you know the cognitive functional preferences of these different types, or at least some to some
Some of them,
degree.
I don't know the exact specs. Yeah.
ISFJs and INFJs share the middle two, extroverted feeling, introverted thinking, um, nougaty center. And that
Mhm.
means very much enjoying sitting and pontificating about things and theorizing about things. It's a lot of theorizing.
Mhm.
Um, and he's a practical thinker, and I'm an abstract thinker. So it makes it interesting. There's a certain level of interesting static that causes where we can talk about things, and he can come at it from the very much more like technical, practical sense, and I can come at it from a much more weird,
Yeah.
abstract sense. But yet we still find that common ground of we're both willing to just kind of go where the idea takes us and see where we end up. Um,
Yeah. That's cool.
and we like gaming together, so I mean, we play multiplayer games. It's fun. We kind of gravitate into our roles and yeah, we just never fight. I mean, honestly, it's so nice to just have a friend that you just never get into an argument with. And I think that's the extroverted feeling there. It's just I can't imagine what we would
Yeah.
fight about. And he's always there for me. I'm always there for him. So there's a sense of reliability. I think that's an IJ thing, probably. Just that
Yeah.
reliability of friendship. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, it doesn't mean I'm going
Awesome.
around befriending every ISFJ I meet, but I mean it just so happens that this particular ISFJ I get along with very, very well.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. That's
yeah.
cool. That makes me think. So the friend I wanted to bring along today, I
Mhm.
think I'm like 95% sure he's an ENFP,
Mhm.
and he has like almost all the interests you just listed. I think he's scheduling a typing session with you too.
Mhm.
That'll be interesting
Mhm.
take on that. But just based on what you said, I feel like I could see your and his personality types getting along. And I don't know if that's just your, who you are as particular people, but do INFJs and ENFPs usually get along?
Yeah, if you Google
Assuming
it,
he's in.
actually, they're one of the pairs of types that are kind of notoriously um, get along really well. Uh,
Yeah.
and I've had some very good ENFP friendships. My ex-wife's an ENFP, so it's interesting. ENFPs are um, they're kind of like dynamite. They are
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, but also could be very dangerous. Depends on the ENFP and the situation, and um, it's that extrovert intuition, that sort of instability that is interesting to
Yeah.
INFJs. It's fascinating and fun.
Yeah.
and carefree kind of. But
Yeah.
if you're in a situation as an INFJ, if you're in a situation where your relationship with an ENFP goes south, then
Mhm.
it can become very bad. So it's because they're introverted feelers, it's not the same kind of
Yeah.
handshake kind of thing that happens between two extroverted feelers, if that makes sense. But that friction
Yeah.
is what makes
Yeah.
it interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I relate to almost everything you said. Sounds familiar.
Yeah, so
I don't
actually,
know.
yeah, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I don't want to keep you if you have.
No, it's fine. Let me see. I can probably. I don't know if you have more questions. So if you have more questions, I could give it another like 5 minutes. How's that sound?
Yeah, sounds good. I'll just ask one more then.
Sure. Did you have more
Um,
than one? How many did you have?
I had three for you,
Okay,
and you
go
kind
ahead.
of
Do
answered two
all
of them.
three, and I'll do all three. I don't want to leave any questions
So
unanswered.
you answered the first two actually.
Okay.
Which types are most present, and what's your favorite? So I'll just get to the third one, which is um, which types get along best with each other. Like, what are the like peanut butter jelly types?
Oh, there's ones that people say on the internet, like um, ENFP, INFJ, ENFP, INTJ. Um, IN,
ENFP, INTJ. That's cool.
there's a Facebook group for that. hmm Um, and I guess the way they describe it is kind of like like imagine you know I don't know. ENFPs have a way of breaking through INTJ's kind of uh, frosty demeanor or something like that. They can get through to the nougaty center. Um,
For sure.
they say INTPs and INFJs are kind of a peanut butter and jelly match. I have dated INTPs before, and I'd say it depends on the health of the INTP. I have had some amazing friendships with INTPs. So I would say from a conversational standpoint and a friendship
They
standpoint.
intimidate me a little bit,
What's that?
at least. INTPs, especially the like super duper INTPs, they intimidate me a little bit.
Oh, do they?
Yeah,
Interesting.
just the I think it's the like just the kind of like unabashed straightforwardness and like
hmm
I don't know, it's like I respect it, but I'm also like, oh my god, that's very
So
bold of you.
so when you interesting. So that actually makes me think you're more of an INTJ, honestly. Because I think an ISF
More of an INTJ.
Yeah, and because ISFJs and INFJs are both introverted thinkers, and they actually really gravitate towards that introverted thinking. They actually really want to get into that really like cold world of logic because you're like, ooh, here's someone who does it better than me. That's exciting. Let's talk
Wrong.
about it.
Like it is cool. It's definitely exciting, but I prefer to. I think I admire that from afar, if that makes sense. Like I
hmm
prefer not to be in such close contact with that kind of.
So there you go. That strengthens my theory that you might be an INTJ because
Interesting.
I think ISFJs and INFJs get lost in talking to people like that. They lose themselves
Sure.
kind of because they're like, oh, just let's talk about all this TI stuff.
Yeah.
Let's just pontificate forever um,
Yeah.
about whatever we want, theorize. And the thing I like about talking to INTPs is they'll go with you wherever you want to go, like because the extroverted intuition. So I can throw out some really fucking crazy idea that I've had, I've been thinking about, and INTP will take it
Yeah.
totally seriously, and they'll totally listen, hear me
Mhm.
out, and then they'll offer a really very valid thought on it. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Um, let's see. I'm thinking about other types that I know. Like there are types that I know in person that get along really, really, really well. Um, my dad's an ISTJ and my mom is an ESFJ, and they both get along very well. My dad wears the pants, and my mom's perfectly happy with him wearing the pants, and that's how they do it. Um, of course, as the child of that, my dad is an authoritarian, which is bad for an INFJ, and they also tend to rile each other up because they're both in like introverted sensing land all the time. So they're all just talking about
Mm.
everything that's happened or is happening or whatever, and just continuing to rev each other's engines and get you know upset about things. um,
Yeah.
so I've also heard ENTJs and INFJs can be an interesting matchup. The ENTJ will be daddy kind of, and the INFJ. So I think a lot of times it would be like a more dominant ENTJ and a more submissive kind of INFJ. Um, I do know I had a former boss who was ENTJ and his wife was INFJ. Um, Let's see. I know I'm like only telling you the ENTPs are a good match with INFJs. There's a video of me from a few videos back, um, uh, talking to an ENTP, and you can kind of get a sense of that chemistry. Um, but I don't know how INTJs and ENTPs would get along though. I think maybe there would be some friction there. Um, what
I
are
love
yeah?
NFTs for sure.
You love ENFPs?
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, and then there's other types that would probably really hate ENFPs. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like what are some types that might not appreciate. Um, well, I think ESTJs and ISTJs bristle against the NF types, and I think they don't appreciate the sort of foolish idealism and social justicey kind of nature that the NF types have. Are you like social justicey?
I think I used to be like in early college, but really not really anymore. I don't think so.
You're making me lean towards INTJ more and more as the call goes on. I think if you were an INFJ, you would be a lot more social justicey, probably. At least the ones I know definitely are, and I am. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah. I think that's that extra, it's extroverted feeling. It's really the introverted intuition and extroverted feeling. It's like there's got to be a better world out there, and it's a world of justice and freedom and happiness, and everyone's, and we can have that world, and we
Yeah.
must do this to have it.
I think that like used to be my philosophy or was closer to my philosophy
Hmm.
um, until until I joined this bipartisan political organization and just listened to a lot of debate.
Hmm.
Just realized there's so many different kinds of people,
Hmm.
and just having everybody reach a consensus is really impossible. So I think some of that idealism faded after
Hmm.
that experience.
Hmm.
But I'd say maybe I'm naturally inclined to be that way. It's just that experience kind of made me like jaded in a sense.
Hmm. Hmm. Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, I think I've listed off like probably all the type pairs that I can think of off the top of my head as I look at this. One other one I can think of is my sister's an ESFP married to an ESFJ, and they get along very well. They don't seem to have any arguments that I can tell. But
Yeah,
my ESFP sister is just very like it's hard for me to imagine her getting into an argument with anyone. She's just very sweet person, um, pretty easygoing.
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
This was a lot of fun.
good. Glad you enjoyed it. Well, I guess I'll look forward to typing your friend or talking to your friend.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited to see that as well.
Did I leave any
All right,
questions
well, thanks,
unanswered?
Dan.
Sure.
Um, maybe just what's like your all-time favorite type?
My all-time
I
favorite
want to
type?
answer that one. Mhm.
It's a weird. I don't know how to answer that one. Um, I guess I don't know. I don't know if I have a favorite type, but I do like running into other INFJs just because um, for the majority of my life I thought I was just a weirdo and I didn't really realize that there were other people out there like me. And now that the internet has brought people together, you can find other ones like you, even if you are statistically less, likely to run into others that are like you. Um, and that that has helped me. Mm, it's a hard question to answer. I don't know. There's although that's been a mixed bag too, because I've had some INFJs that friends that have just that the friendship completely fell apart too. So um,
Mhm.
I don't know. I guess I'll just have to pick my best friend, my ISFJ best friend, because that's the one friendship or relationship that I've had the longest success with. So I guess that must be it. But I really do like ENTPs a lot, so they crack me up, and I have good fun with ENTPs and INTPs. So that's probably my answer.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Awesome.
All right, thanks, Blake.
All right, well,
Have a good
thanks again.
evening. Uh,
You too.
and I'll post your video up sometime, probably next week, maybe.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, thanks a lot. Take care. And
All
for
right,
our
take care.
friends at home, I'm going to do the bumper here at the end here. So, friends at home, please like, subscribe, do all the YouTube things. Please leave a comment, actually, if you thought Blake was an ISFJ, an INFJ, or an INTJ. If you have an opinion, it feels you have a strongly held opinion, share it, please, in the comments, and that'll give us something to think about and talk about. All right, buenas noches.